Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about The Handmaiden. The Handmaiden is a twisting and turning thriller, caper, revenge movie. It's a lot of things, and it's lush and beautiful and male-gazy and a lesbian revenge twisting puzzle of a movie that keeps surprising you with revelations as it goes on. It is long, but seemingly not feeling as long as it really is. I'm often like, oh, was that long? Although it definitely feels 2 hours, but it flows in kind of a majestic way. This is the director Park Chan-wook, who obviously is known for Oldboy and revenge films, but this film kind of goes deeper into its subtext, into the patriarchy, into all these different things, and becomes one of the more interesting and deeper, self-aware and interesting kind of erotic thrillers I've seen anyone make in a long time. In fact, it's probably one of the more intelligent erotic thrillers anyone's made in like fucking forever, it feels like. And The Handmaiden takes all that and says things about it politically, both being in Japanese and Korean, the Japanese being in yellow text, the Korean being in white text in the subtitles, which was an interesting idea. I probably did not get a lot of what it was saying about Korea and Japan other than the Japanese were dicks to the Koreans, but that's my limited understanding. You can tell me in the comments how wrong I was or how right I was. I don't care. I would prefer the latter. He takes a story, The Fingersmith, by Welsh writer Sarah Waters, and changed it so much she felt that this film was really inspired by her book, not based on it. I think it's a very interesting, intriguing, dense movie, but it's a dense movie that keeps revealing itself and peeling back layers, but also as it's peeling back layers, you realize what you were peeling back was a lot bigger than you actually thought it was going to be when you started the process of this whole thing. It takes place in 1930s Korea during the Japanese occupation. The original book took place in the Victorian era, but this takes place in 1930s Korea. A con man, Count Fujiwara, who hires a pickpocket named Suki to become the maid of a mysterious and fragile and seemingly mentally unbalanced and very sheltered heiress, Lady Hadeko, in an idea to get her wealth because she has all the wealth and she is being kind of courted by her uncle, who keeps her there, who has a massive literature collection and is very wealthy, but all the wealth is really in her name, and then that when she marries this guy, that he will be very wealthy because he's marrying her, I believe. This count, played by Jun-woo, is coming in to kind of seduce her, con her, and get all the money, and then put her in an insane asylum, and then run off and give the other money to this pickpocket and be able to be rich himself. But then Suki, played by Tae-ri, I think, suddenly starts falling in love with Lady Hadeko and feeling bad about this arrangement and feeling bad about what she's conning her into, and many more twists and turns happen that you don't even really want me to get into, because the viewing of this film and seeing the twists and turns is really part of the entire experience. One of the things this film gets really into is the whole idea of male gaze, and I think because most movies, it's kind of a male-dominated field, director-wise. Not to say I agree with that necessarily, but that, I guess, kind of the way it is, and a lot of our cinema has been done by the male gaze, you know, James Bond, for example. The Handmaiden has all these kind of very intense lesbian love scenes. It kind of brings up the fact of the male gaze and what Park Chan-wook is doing with them, but he's almost kind of playing into it and not acting like it's not there. Although seeing these two women 69 in glorious cinematography was maybe an interesting cinematic moment, but I think it also kind of plays into the systematic undervaluing of them as women and as people, or it just shows that the director is kind of a perv, whichever. But I kind of liked that idea that he's almost calling to mind it. He's not straying away from it. It didn't feel like he's fetishizing it necessarily. It felt like he just kind of played into it in a way, I guess. Although I guess that is fetishizing it. It's kind of a weird thing to get into with this, but the cinematography in this film is absolutely gorgeous. If you can see this movie on the big screen, on a really nice screen, I absolutely recommend it. I did get to see it at a nice screen at the new Alamo Draft House here in downtown Brooklyn, and I was really happy because I don't think I would have gotten to see this film on such a large, beautiful screen in 4K. This isn't an advertisement for them, although it's becoming one, but The Handmaiden looked absolutely gorgeous on it, and it helps because this has such a well-made, kind of almost classic Hollywood Hitchcockian kind of flow about it, where you're kind of so into the mystery as it goes on. At the beginning, you're in this con and you're with them, them and you're with how interesting that is. But as it kind of goes on and you go through the puzzle and the maze of this movie, you're kind of more interested in it. And I love thrillers where by the end I'm more into it than I was at the beginning, even if the beginning's strong. And I think the beginning of this was strong, but as I went on with this movie, I kind of just got more and more into it. It was like, how many more twists and turns are there going to be? And it's not as big as like the twist of like Oldboy or something like that. And I think Park Chan-wook is known for kind of twists and mysteries and revenge stories that change and so forth. But I think this film really has fun with it, almost in a Gone Girl, North by Northwest kind of self-aware director way. And it's interesting that I don't think this is playing like a director self-awarely making their own films. Like North by Northwest is Hitchcock doing Hitchcock, but it's almost like that level of confidence in the direction, but I don't think he's necessarily doing that with the movie. I think what he's doing is making a very well made, very skilled kind of thriller, but playing with it and going in and out of it and twisting and turning with it. Also saying a lot about sexism, and I think they're really saying how they are undervalued and how they can have their revenge through this, through what's happening. And it also plays into the whole mystery of this and kind of getting you within the mystery. And it's kind of one of Park Chan-wook's better technically made films, but I think how investing it is and how interesting it is with The Handmaiden and kind of going throughout it, but showing these two women and their revenge. The 1930s Korean setting with the Japanese occupation shows kind of an underclass and people who need to con their way into a certain society, particularly the Count, who is Korean but trying to be Japanese nobleman, and how they're trying to kind of fight their way and kind of con their way into getting through this kind of seemingly hard upper class or class system that they're trying to break out from. Obviously, this was a different setting and a different story in the book, and I can't really comment on adaptation wise, but I think what Park Chan-wook did with his kind of adaptation is make the revenge feel like everyone needed to con each other to kind of get somewhere. And those twists and turns, I think, bring out that kind of an idea, almost like a 70s film, in that there was a time, in 70s Hollywood where America was not in the greatest shape and people were just trying to con and make their own way somehow in a very dishonest time. And I think this is similar to that, but also in that classic Hollywood sheen of itself. I love films that get deeper and more interesting as they go on, and I think The Handmaiden really had that. It was really one of my more favorite experiences cinematically I've seen in a while. Now, this film, I really love the acting, particularly the two women. At first, you kind of are more following Kim Tae-ri, who plays Soo-hee, and you kind of follow her. It's one of her first films, and she has such a presence about her, but also kind of an innocence, but a assuredness through her performance that she really brings to that character. She is naive but very sure of herself, where she knows her skills, she knows how to do certain things, but later how naive she truly is. And also Count Fukuwara, who's the con man, played by Jung-woo, who is very charismatic, very handsome, kind of has almost a Clark Gable kind of sensibility. Cary Grant, very classical, kind of handsome, very cocky, kind of like you want to fall in love with him just like the people in the movie, or you want to be his best friend kind of thing. I think he's very good at doing that kind of a performance. I don't know what his natural kind of screen presence is, but almost watching this performance, I feel like this probably could be. He could do this kind of thing and be a star just with this, but you can also see that deconstruct down by having the amazing kind of feminist revenge of the two actresses and kind of deconstructed. He's very good at playing that in the right ways for the right scenes. There's a lot of good performances, but the one that really stuck out and really kind of surprised me as the film went on was him, Min-hee, who plays Lady Hariko. Really, at the beginning, I underestimated her, and you feel like she's playing kind of clueless, very sheltered heiress, and as you see her develop, you see how many more layers that actress has and how good she is as an actress and how charismatic she can be. Really, a lot of times towards the end, I'm mainly looking at her and looking at what she's doing. And it's interesting. I think a lot of what works about certain performances is they are able to tell the story with the film, which is something people don't give enough credit to actors. But I think in a film like this, you sense it, because had she not be able to change her acting styles from scene to scene or change the kind of performance she's doing, and our understanding of that performance helps within that, and she's very, very good. One of the things I really liked about this film is the gothic sensibility, the architecture, the idea of European and Korean architecture coming together, and almost this idea of understanding wealth and knowledge through wealth in different cultures and being able to experience different cultures, which I guess is a sign of wealth, and how The Handmaiden does that but it does have a very gothic sensibility about it, how there's all this hidden perversion, not the lesbian romance, but this hidden perversion of other people that's kind of like the evil of humanity, and how romance has kind of been destroyed by it, but how romance can kind of bloom through it as well. It's kind of gloomy but optimistic. What I think I like about this story, as you get more into it, this film has more layers to get into, and I've talked about that already, but it's kind of like a good friend. As you spend more time with them, the more you want to hang out with them. Your first meeting, you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And by the end, you're like, oh man, when is that guy coming over again? And I think The Handmaiden does that to you in a way. It enthralls you in its mystery. It is like watching a really good mystery. I think what Park Chan-wook does is he shows a real master director of mystery and suspense, really, and that's kind of what he's most known for. He plays it in a very camp way, which I think foreign directors are a lot better at doing than America. America doesn't really know how to do camp. If we do camp, we have to do it far too high nowadays, and we're not even really good at that, to be honest. The Handmaiden's good at playing within that and doing it kind of naturally with these actors and with Park Chan-wook's direction. It's really probably his first film I've really loved absolutely in a while. I don't want to say since Oldboy, but probably since the Vengeance trilogy is the one that I would definitely recommend. And it's one that kind of spellbound me. I saw this at the nice premiere for the Alamo Drafthouse. I'm not advertising it, but I was more thinking about this theater because I've always wanted to see this theater. And I was thinking at the beginning, like, this movie better be good or it's going to be hard for me to concentrate on it because I'm thinking too much about the screen and the food, all this stuff. And I've eaten in a movie before. I've done that kind of experience. That's not the point. But by the midway point, I wasn't thinking about that. I think this film has that kind of power of a great mystery. It reminds me of, as lame as it is to, and I've already mentioned Hitchcock, but as lame as it is to say Hitchcock in these kind of situations, it reminds me of that because by the end, I'm like so in it. And I think this film grabs you in a certain regard. I didn't know anything about The Handmaiden when I came in other than Park Chan-wook directed it, and that was enough for me, and I wanted to see it. I wouldn't recommend seeing a lot of trailers at all. I would say go into this as cold as you possibly can, but if you're seeing this part in the review, I guess I fucked that up, so whatever. I like what it does with sexuality and female empowerment and kind of girl power revenge, saying about sexuality and sensuality and our gender roles and power and conning and why you need to con someone and how you need to get somewhere in your life. And it's kind of a great caper movie. It's a great con movie. It's a great mystery. It's a great unfolding kind of twisting movie. On Wikipedia it says it's an erotic psychological thriller. I don't know if it's necessarily a thriller. I just kind of look at it as a puzzle of a box that keeps opening and turning and having surprises, and you're like, oh, I thought that was that, oh, that's this. And it's also very funny as it goes on. It gets funnier, it gets more enjoyable, and I don't see a lot of films that get more enjoyable as they go on. They're still good, but I feel like this film increased in quality and won me over, maybe a little less towards the very end, but still, but once you're there, you're fine. You know, you've seen the whole thing, it's got your money. You're so with this film, and I love seeing a great director. This is close to another one masterfully made film by him. I think it's a film I think has a lot of contradictions in it. It has a lot of problems with maybe the male gaze, and I'm not sure if what it's saying, it's really saying that, or it just has it in it, but I don't think it's as odd and as auteur directory as something that uses the female image and the idea of femininity the way like Neon Demon did, which also played at Cannes with this, which I've noticed this gets compared to that because they were seen by a lot of people around the same time at Cannes, although in America and I think in most countries Neon Demon and this were released fairly far apart. A lot of people would just look at this as another entry into that filmography. I think it's a bit more stronger than that, and I think it was a mystery that makes me think about your role in people's lives. It makes me think about perception and the perception of certain things and how people perceive certain situations and stories, and how one person won't even remember certain things and one person will remember another scene differently, how Park Chan-wook uses that to unveil more of the stories, how it really shows him as a very good storyteller. And that's something that a good mystery writer and a good mystery director does. That's why we love David Fincher. That's why we still talk about Hitchcock, because he knew how to tell you information. And part of that is storytelling and the distinct way you tell information and tell it to tell you a very interesting and captivating story, an audience-friendly story. I think The Handmaiden, despite its length, its sexuality, that it's in 2 different foreign languages, and probably a slew of other reasons, and I'm not even getting to Octopus, it's a film that I'm not going to soon forget and think about all the ideas within it, and I think it's one of Park Chan-wook's strongest. I think it's a film that has a lot of memorable parts and a lot of memorable things about certain roles of power, of status, of gender, and says all those things while also telling you a great thriller, mystery, confusing puzzle puzzle box of a weird movie. And that's probably what I'll always remember The Handmaiden for. But I will also probably more remember it for being a very entertaining kind of mystery. A mystery that I can walk through and be surprised by and have new revelations for and have a real thrill as an audience member. And I think The Handmaiden can do that. It is a strange, odd mystery, and there are various layers to it, but it feels like a well-told, well-organized machine by a very well-skilled, controlled director. And if you've been missing that sort of thing from a mystery and don't get a lot of it, I think The Handmaiden can do that and do a lot more with it, and uses it to say all these things and twist and turn through this maze of a movie and enjoy it the entire way through, while seeing and thinking of things that you never thought it could do when you initially came into it. And that surprise and that excitement is what makes The Handmaiden probably one of my favorite thrillers and one of the more enjoyable thrillers I've seen in a very long time. So if you have seen The Handmaiden and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.